The history of the report goes back over 30 years when Investor Economics, now a part of ISS Market Intelligence, first developed the report. Goshka Folda, our head of global research, really played a key role in developing the report and still to this day continues to play a key role in developing the research, the top level thinking, and really ultimately what goes into this report. And the goal of the report really is to really bring that high level bird's eye view lens of the total Canadian financial wealth landscape and really think of it in a holistic manner. So looking at it through several different lenses, whether it be demographics, distribution, product, technology, macroeconomics, and so on and so forth. But the idea ultimately is to have that top bird's eye view, high level lens of the Canadian financial landscape today and where we expect that landscape to be in the next decade and beyond. So we have forecasts that we develop for the next decade. And we also have all of our top level thinking and high level research that we've included to really bring forth that holistic strategic picture of where we're at today and where we feel like the next 10 years will be. And it's great to see that this report really gets used at all levels across businesses, whether it be analysts who love getting deep into the data, deep into the spreadsheets, business line heads who love to take a look at their specific business lines and the data specific to their business lines and make those decisions, or entire business heads who have huge mandates and huge decisions to make across business lines, across product lines, and so on and so forth. So that, in a nutshell, is a bit about what the household balance sheet is. So we've switched things up a little bit in this year's household balance sheet, where we've looked at breaking up the report into specific sections to highlight really key trends and key developments and key areas which we feel are extremely important to the readers and the consumers of the household balance sheet. We recently published the forecasts, and we've also recently published what we call the mega trends, which, as I'm sure you can tell from the name, is all about the core 5 main mega trends that we expect to shape the next decade ahead. These being, and we've essentially broken these down into 5 words. We call these the client, the growth, the economics, the competition, and the data. And these 5 words and 5 trends are essentially what will be shaping the next decade ahead. So in terms of the first movement, the client, yes, there are 5 core themes, but an argument can certainly be made that the client is really the main overarching theme over the next decade. If we can use a bit of a high school science analogy here, where the 5 themes are essentially an atom, with the client and their needs and preferences essentially being the nucleus, the core theme over the next decade. All the other themes being the electrons around the atom, everything's interrelated, everything plays together, but really it's all about the clients and specifically their needs and preferences. And understanding those needs and preferences will be a key determining factor for the success of the industry over the next decade. We look at the client in several different lenses in the household balance sheet. One of these lenses is in terms of generational. So in terms of the generational lens, we can see that today the landscape is very different than what we believe it'll look like in 10 years from now. For example, today, baby boomers and the silent generation control approximately 60% of total financial wealth in Canada. Over the next decade, we expect that to change, that by 2034, they will control approximately 30% of total financial wealth. So a pretty significant shift when we think about who controls the majority of the wealth, what the models have been shaped around those individuals, and so on and so forth, and how this will change over the next decade, and how the needs and preferences of the younger generations, the generations that are building their wealth, gaining income, and building their financial wealth over time, how their needs and preferences are different to the generations that control the majority of the wealth today. The second movement, growth, which obviously a very important movement, very important for the industry in terms of thinking about what the next decade will bring in terms of growth and overall financial wealth and the landscape in general in Canada. There's a lot that goes into this and into our models. We consider a lot of factors, macro factors, demographics, immigration, population growth, as well as the abundance of historical data that we have across products and distribution channels. And the growth over the next decade is certainly expected to slow down. To give a little context, over the last 10 years, the industry grew by approximately 8% per year on a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR. 8% per year, quite good, strong growth. What we've forecasted for the next decade is a 5.9% CAGR. So it's certainly a bit of a slowdown, especially when comparing to what the industry has grown accustomed to over the last few decades. And so we expect that this will, of course, have ramifications. We expect that there'll be pressure on the economic models of the business. There will be pressure in terms of competition and the growing level of competition, especially when the pie as a whole is growing at a slower rate. And so we certainly expect that the next decade will be challenging for much of the industry, but there will certainly be opportunities that come up within those challenges. And it's the firms that can, and the industry players that can make the most out of those opportunities, that despite the slower growth, will still be able to find success, whether that be finding new avenues of growth or in some cases, perhaps capturing share and capturing growth from other industry players. In terms of economics, the third movement, we've seen that the client landscape is changing quite significantly in Canada over the next decade. The growth is expected to slow down, and these factors are certainly expected to have an impact on the economics of the business. New clients with new needs, new preferences are coming in. How will that shape the business models today? New players coming in, platforms, digital upstarts, disruptors that are looking to rethink the economic model of the business and of the overall industry. How will that shape the economics of the business over the next decade? We certainly feel that there will be pressures on the traditional business model, pressures whether it be fees, margins, and so on. Technology has certainly enabled, in many ways, scalability and ability to manage costs, but it also means that we're seeing barriers to entries lowered and new players coming in, disrupting what has been perhaps the more traditional business model over the last few decades. So we certainly expect that as one of the 5 core themes, interplaying with the other 5 core themes, that economics will be rethought, reshaped, and impacted in the decade ahead. In terms of competition, the fourth movement, once again, all of the 5 core themes are interplaying here, where the client, the change in the growth, the economics of the business are all reshaping what's happening over the next decade. The competition is expected to ramp up significantly, especially in this slower growth environment. And now that we have to use a bit of a real estate term, a buyer's market, where the clients and their needs and preferences are becoming ever more important and ever more growing in the next decade, how will that shape the competition in the 10 years to come? We expect that a number of digital newcomers, platforms, especially in the direct-to-consumer realm, will enter the field, shake up the competition with various new business models. And so now we're seeing that business leaders will have to look within their verticals as competition ramps up and growth slows down, but also across verticals and across products and across distribution channels. As we've seen over the last decade, the lines have started to blur, and we expect that the lines between channels, between products, will continue to blur. We'll see new innovative products coming in and new innovative models coming in. And so that in combination will certainly have quite an impact on the competitive landscape. We expect that direct-to-consumer, those more digital platforms, will be growing on an annual basis close to the double digits, whereas some of the more traditional models may grow more in the mid-single-digit rates. So how will we see this impact play out and ramp up the competition for the decade to come? So data, the last of the 5 movements, but certainly not the least important. In fact, probably one of the most important. We live in a world where data is becoming increasingly accessible and ever more important, especially when looking at the industry level. The industry is collecting more data on their clients, on the ecosystems, on their surroundings than ever before. How can that data be leveraged in this environment to meet the needs and preferences of the evolving clients? How can data and technology be leveraged to create new solutions and new innovative products that will suit the needs and preferences of this new generations of clients coming in, but also existing clients that have evolving needs and preferences across generational lines? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all going to be about the individual. And that's where we see trends like personalization and customization really shine through over the next decade. And that's where data and technology can be leveraged to its maximum potential. Ultimately, the next decade ahead is all about the client and their shifting needs and preferences and how those are evolving over the next 10 years. We've got slower growth, we've got more intense competition, we've got economic models under pressure, and we have more data and technology at our disposal today than ever before. How can all of what's available to the industry today and these factors that are shaping the next 10 years be leveraged to essentially meet the needs and preferences of the client as their needs and preferences evolve and shift over the next 10 years?